Just waiting. Okay, we're live right now. So good morning, everyone, and hello again to the second edition of Romola D Reports. I'm continuing the story started with part one with Frederic Laroche, who has been telling us about his recent experience with the police in France, in Grenoble, France, and with a psychiatric institution in Grenoble, where he has been detained and where he has been required to take a certain medication of a very strong antipsychotic on a monthly basis. All of this being related to his activism regarding the use of electromagnetic weapons and Neuro weapons on civilians in France, a scenario in which he's been very active and very helpful to all civilians who are experiencing this kind of covert harassment and covert surveillance from a whole variety of authorities, so-called authorities, meaning intelligence agencies, possibly military groups, and so on. So at this point, in this particular podcast, what we are trying to do is go back in time a little bit to the moment at which Frederic began to become aware that he himself was the subject of unlawful surveillance, and that the form that this surveillance was actually taking was quote unquote electronic or electromagnetic. In other words, he was beginning to feel on his body electromagnetic signals that were coming in from outside. This is very much the experience reported by many hundreds, if not thousands, of people worldwide, and it's most definitely a situation that needs to be exposed, challenged, and terminated. So we're going now to the time period, I think, of 1998, when Frederic Laroche was living in Grenoble, France, in a suburb of Grenoble, France, and we're going to hear the whole story from him. So welcome, Frederic.
Yes, hello.
And before we begin, once again, I wanted to ask if you wanted to take the witness affirmation so that we can prove to all viewers that what you are presenting is most definitely the truth as you have experienced it. And so that this information that you are providing can be used in a court of law if needed.
Yes, sure. I do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you so much, Frederic. So, okay, let's get started here. So let's go back to 1998. Did you want to take us back and just tell us what was going on at that time period in your life and scene a little bit?
Yes, I had finished my studies since a few years, and I was still living with my family in my family house in the suburb of Grenoble. And I was not very much interested to step in the world of working field and working for a company, and I was more interested to help others in association and NGOs and some things like that. So I was still with my family, so I was not feeling the need to get a salary to support my own life in a separate place of living. Maybe I was under surveillance at that time, but I was not aware of that. It only came to my knowledge maybe in the spring or the summer of 1998, because I was noticing that the same person were walking in the same streets as me when I was going outside to the main city in Grenoble. And if I was stopping, they were also stopping. And if I was walking fast, they were accelerating. And if I also tried to walk very, very slow, and they were not knowing what to do, they were also trying to walk very slowly. And if I was making a few turns around the same building, I was seeing them making the same turns again. And if I was by surprise going into a shop, then they were not knowing what to do except going to the shop also or waiting for me outside. And one day I think I have even trapped them, because I have been to a dead end, and at the dead end I had the luck that the entry door of the building was not totally closed, because normally you have to press a code to open the door. So I took this occasion to enter the building, and I have closed back the door, so it was not possible to get inside for the next person who were following me. And I have taken the stair, and I was maybe on the fourth floor, and from the window in the stairs, I was watching if someone was coming in the same dead end. And effectively, I saw a few persons. Sometimes it was one person alone, or sometimes it was a couple, or sometimes it was 2 or 3 persons, and they were coming to the dead end, but they were not aware it was a dead end. So they were coming to the end, and they were surprised. Oh, it's going nowhere, so we have to go back. And then they were going away. And then after a few seconds, another person is coming also, and then they were he was surprised. Oh, it's a dead end, so I have to go back. And after a few minutes, I think I have seen maybe 5 or 6 persons coming like that. And then after waiting a few minutes more, I saw a car coming very fast in a rush, and then they were pressing the brakes like an emergency, and they were stopping in the entry of this dead end. And then I saw 3 men, getting out of the car and banging back the door with a lot of noise.
Mm-hmm.
And they were entering the dead end also, but they didn't want to be just searching for me. So they pretended to be in charge of the garbage. So they have taken the garbage with them, and it was on wheel. So they were moving the garbage at the end of the dead end, but they were not the person in charge of the garbage. They were coming from a regular car, and they were very upset and very angry. I could see the moves they were doing. They were very nervous, and they were arriving at the end of the dead end, and they were throwing the garbage, because obviously it was not, they were not here for that. And they were searching all around, where am I? Where am I? And they could not understand where I have been. So they were very upset, and then they came back to their car, and they have started the car very fast, and they went away. And I waited there maybe half an hour more, and nothing happened. So at that moment, the owner of the flat of the 4th floor arrived, and he told me, "What are you doing here?" And I just invented something. I just told him, "Oh, you know, I'm just here to collect some money for an NGO. So do you want to give me some money?" And he said, "Yeah, maybe, but I don't have the money, or I am not interested." And he was seeing in my eyes that I was a little tense. So he was not knowing exactly what was going on, but I could see some stickers on on his door, and I could understand that this guy was involved with an NGO like Doctors Without Borders or something like that. So he was a helpful person. And when he saw me that I was in a kind of distress, he just stopped asking me questions. He offered me to come inside and to have a cup of coffee with him. And then for a few minutes, we were having the coffee, and he told me, "Are you expecting me to give you a bed tonight?" And I say, "Well, I don't know, sir." And he told me, "Well, this is difficult for me. I think I cannot keep you with me tonight, because I will not stay in my home." And so it was a very nice talk. And after that, I left him, and I went back by walk to my home, and nobody was following me anymore. So it was the proof for me that I was really being followed. And after that, I realized that the neighbor just aside of the family house has gone. He has gone, and then a lady came instead, and she shifted inside this house just next to ours, And she was alone. She was a single lady. She was having no boyfriend, no husband, no children. And so there was a ground floor and a first floor, and we were having a ground floor, a first floor, and a second floor. And my bedroom was on the second floor, and it was very near to this house. So I was not paying attention at first, but then I was feeling some pains during the night. I was sleeping, and it was happening just after a few days after her coming here. I was having pains during the nights, and it was a pain in my abdomen, and it was maybe situated under my right kidney or bladder. I was not sure exactly where it was situated, but I could not, by touching myself, I could not feel any damage or any kind of things, and it was only happening when I was in my bed, still not moving during the night, and it was not happening at any other moment. And it was a very hard pain, like if I was having a kind of needle punch inside my abdomen. So it was very painful, and without the possibility to understand what is it exactly. And a few times later, I have asked the help to my doctor, and he has made a few examination. So we have made X-rays, echography, palpation with the hand. We have made blood analysis, urine analysis, feces analysis. I think we have even made a scanner with the brain, and there were no sign of any explanation, physical explanation of those pains I had during the nights. And in the same time, I was also feeling some kind of excitement in my genitals during the night. And it was also happening during the day. So there were two phenomena. There was this pain inside my abdomen, and there was also a kind of, if you were feeling like playing with sex toys in your genitals, it was feeling the same. It was looking like a vibration, or but it was difficult to know if it's a mechanical vibration or electrical vibration. So I was feeling something was shaking my genitals, but I was not knowing what. And I was thinking this is maybe connected. The both manifestation are connected with this lady, and this lady was.
Can I stop
not
you right there? Because it seemed to, at this point in time, you were beginning to consider that these pains and weird vibrations you were feeling in different parts of your anatomy were indeed externally originating signals that were arriving on your body.
Yes, actually, I am someone very, grounded, and my thinking is always very rational or very logical and scientific. So when something is happening, on the contrary of the psychiatrists I have met later on, all the psychiatrists made the assumption that I was not able to see clearly through myself, because maybe I was suffering from the delusional sense disease, and such a sick person, from their point of view, is not able to see clearly through himself. And I was not having this disease. I was very much able to see through me, and I was able to see and to see the dissociation. And this is very interesting, because when you are yourself, you know that you are yourself. When you are alone, you know that you are alone. When you are with others, you know that you are with others. And whatever is happening between you and the others, you know that it is an interaction between you and others. And there are many interactions between others and between the object, between you and the world, environment, etc., etc. So when you reach your 30s, and if you didn't have before a mental disease, then you are not going to get a mental disease just like that. It's not
No, and
possible.
we're not
So
even talking about the possibility of a mental disease. There's no doubt, as you say, that psychiatrists who come along and listen to these accounts jump to conclusions and immediately start considering the reporter delusional. But let's set the whole question of psychiatry aside for just this moment and just focus on,
yeah,
as you say, the science of it.
yeah,
Because you are a scientist, you are a software engineer, and you've had training in science, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so have I. So let's just talk about it from a scientific point of view. You have
yeah,
these experiences. You've actually gone to a doctor. You've done a whole bunch of tests, medical tests, to figure out what's going on. The
yeah,
doctors found absolutely nothing, and yet you
yeah.
continue to have these pains on your body and in
Mm,
your body, both on your physical body and also on your private parts, and
mm,
you begin to feel these as vibrations, and you begin to associate this with this woman who just moved in. So I'm just trying to talk
yeah,
about the time period,
yeah,
nothing
yeah.
else.
And
Not the mentation involved, but just the
yeah,
time
yeah.
period. She moves
But
in, you start feeling these weird symptoms on your body, and then what happens?
yeah, actually, I was able to understand that it was a foreign influence and it was not
Mhm.
from me. But then I had to find out what foreign influence were from and what or who. And
Absolutely.
I had no clues about that.
Hmm.
And I have never been to search for this information on the internet. I was just living my life without no internet in my life. And I was just trying to understand everything by myself. So I saw that this lady kept caught my attention because she was receiving visitors
Hmm.
in the night.
Hmm.
There were sometimes one or two big black car and maybe three or four people, men and women. They were going out of this car and they were going inside the home and they were moving in the first floor. And I could hear them talking and laughing and etc. because they were having the window open. It was very near to my own window open. So, and then it was happening the pains at this moment, and when I was having very much difficulties to stay away from the pains, I could sometimes hear them having a laugh. And when I was being successful in controlling that and not receiving the pain anymore, they were, after a few minutes, they were having a reaction to that. And they were angry and mad at me. And they were shouting. And sometimes they were also banging on the table with their fists. So I could see immediately that there was a response to whatever I had. They were having a reaction. It was a response. So if it is a response to what I have, then it means that they were knowing what I have. So how they could know what I have? Maybe they are observing me from the distance. Okay, so if someone can uh, observe me, they can maybe also influence me. And that's how I made the connection and I understood all the story. So these people are observing me through the walls and they are using a kind of technology that is going through the walls, definitely. And then they are using something also technological to go through the walls and then to influence me. And I was thinking, okay, if it is vibration or if it is something mechanical, it could be infrasound, it could be bass sound, and this can make vibrating the walls, and maybe it can make me vibrating. And I was thinking maybe it's a pressure wave that they are sending to me. I was explaining that very simply, and I had no other explanation for the beginning. And then I decided that I should not stay in my family home anymore because it was becoming dangerous if I had these pains every night and this vibration also during the daytime. It was making me crazy because I was not having a job, so I was staying full day in my home and I was having only the pain, only the vibration. So it was too much for me. And definitely it was related to this lady and this house next to us. So I decided to get the help of a psychiatrist to ask him, where can I go to stay a few weeks away from my home? And he said to me, okay, I can give you a room for free in one of our mental hospital, and you can stay there, and maybe it will be a relief for you, and you can talk with the doctor to see what is happening to you. You can try to see about everything. I say, yes, that's okay. And it was my first encounter with the psychiatrist world. And there, for a few days, I was not feeling the pains. So I was thinking, okay, so this is definitely connected to the house next to us. But the problem is that in the hospital, there is many empty rooms, and you never know who is going to enter the next day in the hospital. So this is the thing I noticed after a few weeks, that you don't know exactly who is in the hospital, neither the patients, neither the doctors, neither the nurses, neither the people working inside the hospital. And there is a parking lot just aside of the hospital, and you don't know what kind of vehicle are parked here, because it's open parking. And then there is the road, and then there is a hill, so it's an open environment. So after a few days, I noticed that the pain were coming back in the hospital, and I decided to not tell that to the doctor. I just wanted to ask him to help me with a medicine to provide me a kind of chemical shielding to help me to not feel the pain anymore. And at this moment, I was so much insisting to get a pill to not feel the pain, that he finally gave me for the first time this medicine, an antipsychotic, risperidone. And the risperidone was knocking me out. When I was taking the drug at night, it was knocking me out. So I was sleeping. So I told this to the doctor. Well, when I take your medicine, it kind of knock me out, and then I can sleep. So he told me, and then you don't feel the pains anymore? And I said, no. So he said, okay, then I will give you this prescription, and you will have to follow this with this medicine, and maybe you will not feel the pain anymore. And it was his conclusion. He did not try to go further, and me neither. And it was my mistake, because I was having trust in him. So I was thinking he knows what he does. So if he gives me something, and if it's a kind of effective, but it was the side effect of the drug that was effective, not the drug by itself. So it was making me sleep because it was knocking me out, and it was not curing me anything because I was not sick. But this, I had to wait more time to understand that it was a wrong diagnosis from the doctors.
So can I stop right there for just a second? So it sounds like because you were getting pains, you went and saw this doctor. Now, did you see the psychiatrist through your general physician, or was it, did you do it separately?
No, I went to see the psychiatrist right away from the main.
Just right away.
Yeah. And I was I was asking him a place to stay, and he told me to stay in a place to cure, but it was not exactly the same purpose. But anyway.
Right. And then when he finally gave you this drug, which you had insisted on getting, or rather you didn't insist on getting this particular drug, you just wanted some kind of chemical shielding from the pain you were continuously feeling. And then he gave you this drug, which is an antipsychotic, and which served to knock you out and, you know, kind of put you in a deep sleep every night so that you were able to sleep through the night. And at this time period, did you still have pains? Like, did you wake up and feel the pains, or what happened over there?
Yes, actually, before going to deep sleep, I was having the pains. And in the morning, I was having the pain. And sometime in the daytime also. And the vibration also in the night, and before sleeping, and in the morning, and sometime in the days.
And it was continuous. You were being assaulted somewhat continuously with these pains.
Yes, it was happening in my family house,
Mm-hmm.
and it was happening after a few days in the hospital. It was happening in the hospital. So I decided that I had to move again away, and I decided to get a job, because if I get a job, I can have an income, and if I have an income, I can pay my rent, and I can shift to the main city center in Grenoble, and in a place where maybe I will be safe and away from this lady and from the men that were coming to visit her. And so finally, I got my first job. It was in Hewlett-Packard in Grenoble, and it was a 2 months training, and then it could be a regular job. And at that moment, I was ready to install myself in a new flat, in an apartment in Grenoble. And when I shifted in this apartment, maybe not immediately, but maybe after 1 year, I have shifted in this apartment. During the first couple of months, during the first 3 months, there were no pains, nothing. And then I noticed that the neighbor above me moved away, and somebody else came. And just 1 week after this person came, the pain came back. So I started to think, okay, the pain are back in a new place for me, and it seems to be connected with the shifting of my upper neighbor. So is it possible that the lady and the man have followed me there? No, it was not them, it was somebody else. But maybe they were doing the same techniques, the same tactics to me again. So I was not able to understand who were exactly this person, except that I have met them, I have made an encounter, and I have talked with them, and I have listened to what they were talking with each other, and I have observed them
Mm-hmm.
very closely for a long period of time, because it was maybe for 1 month, and it was in Hewlett-Packard. So in this job, I was doing a help desk job for the intranet of Hewlett-Packard in all Europe, in French, in English, and in Spanish. And we were a team of maybe 10 technical experts about Windows NT at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not very familiar with the system, so they were training me for 1 month and 2 months. I was on the training. So for the first 2 or 3 weeks, we were in a small building that was very a part of the main building of HP. So we were a little far, maybe 500 meters far from HP. We were having a separate building. And I met there my colleagues. So I came to know about each of them, and nothing special was happening inside. And then after 2 weeks or 3, I don't remember, our manager told us, we are going next Monday to shift in the main building of HP. And I was not able to understand the reason, but later on, I discovered that there was a reason for that. Because actually, there was not room enough in the place we were to settle a trap in this building. And the trap has already been settled in the main office in HP since a few weeks. The trap was already ready to start. So, but I didn't know about this. So on the next Monday, we all go to the main building, and it was not on the ground floor. And I think it's also important. It was in the middle floor. So it means that people and equipment could be placed under us and above us. So, but I noticed all these details later. And then I saw that we were in an open space. So there were many desks and a half limitation every 3 row of desk. Mm-hmm. So we were sitting in 2 rows of desk, all the 10 technicians, and there was a 3rd row of desk. They were empty. So for the first days, we were working together here, and there was many empty desks around us, and some other desks were having some technicians also. So we were doing the job, and then after a few days, I was coming, and the empty row was filled, full of new person, and they were not technicians. Actually,
Mhm.
I didn't know who they were. And I was continuing my job with my colleagues, and I was only listening because I was on the training. So I was listening also to these guys, and there was maybe one or two lady, and I was listening to what they were talking to each other, and I noticed in their conversation that they were talking about things that I was knowing, things that I have seen, things that I have read, things that I have been there, or things that I have done, and even things that I have done alone. So
Hmm.
I was not able to understand. They were talking about me during full day. And at the beginning, I was not able to realize that. But after a few days, it was becoming obvious that they
Mhm.
were talking about me, what I did a few hours before, a few days before, a few weeks before, and they were knowing everything and all the details, even everything I was doing in private.
Hmm.
So they were just having a little trick. They were not talking about me as Frederic. They were talking about me as Natalie. But
My.
it,
So
it is not very difficult to understand the trick.
yeah. So basically, you started to become aware that these people were really talking about various things you had done, your ideas, your thinking, your words, and actions that you had taken. And they were doing
Yeah.
this on a continuous basis. But they were referring to you with this seemingly coded name, Natalie.
Yeah, they were talking between each other, and they were saying, "Okay, Natalie has been very angry last week, and I think she did not like the meal that um, her mother made for her." So they were always making some remarks and comments. And at the beginning, I was not knowing nothing about this kind of interaction between this group of person and the targeted person. So I was
Mhm.
not knowing anything about that. But
Mhm.
it is their procedure. They have to make some comments, and they have to say the things that the victim has done before, and they have to make some remarks and comments between them. And the purpose is to get the attention of the victim. And when the victim pays attention, it means that the procedure is working well, and then they can proceed.
Mhm.
So
Yes, this
uh,
is exactly what Dr. Duncan talks about in Project Soulcatcher, and others talk about regarding their whole system of engaging in directed conversation or street theater, some sort of action to gain the attention of TIs and provoke a reaction, right? So that they set up this action-reaction scenario, and that apparently plays into their use of hypergame theory and goes into their whole neural mapping scenario
yes,
that they apparently are working out. So, but it's very interesting hearing your story because your story is sort of from the point of view of somebody completely innocent and not aware of this scenario at all that's in
yeah,
play. And you're just kind of becoming attuned to what is going on around you and
yeah,
recognizing that these people who are supposedly sitting next to you and supposedly working in
yeah.
your workplace are not really talking about work or work related
No,
affairs, but
no,
in
no.
fact are talking about Natalie nonstop
Yeah,
and in a very close focus kind of way,
yeah.
focusing on every single detail of Natalie's life, which turns out to be your life.
Yeah, actually, it was the starting of the harassment. So in the starting, they are not so much into the direct stalking. They are, I think they have made a mistake because uh, in the starting, they have to exchange information between them. And I have just caught them exchanging secret information between them. So maybe at the starting, I was not supposed to pay attention, but I
Okay.
have noticed everything. And after few weeks, I have seen them, and there were French person and American person mixed together, and the American were talking in English to them, and they were responding in English, and I was able to understand everything. And the American seemed to come from the FBI or something like that, because they were talking something technical and something with an inquiry going on, and it seemed to be related with me. And they were exchanging some documents with the French person, and at one moment I saw even a big map on a desk, and it was a kind of circle, and there was many areas with different colors and shape. And I was thinking, oh, maybe they are watching a map of the Earth, and they are trying to see a plan about what to do in this country or that. It was not the case, because I have managed to come closer to see the map. It was not a nurse map, it was a brain map.
Oh, wow. So it was not a map
Yeah.
of the Earth, it was a map of the human
No.
brain.
Yeah, and they were actually, it's only later that I understood what was happening here.
Mm-hmm.
The French person were under training. They were
Mm-hmm.
not knowing nothing about all these techniques and these tactics. And the American person were explaining them how to do the things. And they were even doing the training just near me, just at my nose. They were doing the training between them at my nose, and I was not stupid enough to not notice that. So after a few weeks seeing what they were doing, I decided to stop everything. So I stood up and I went towards a French lady, and I told her, okay, now you can stop whatever you are doing, because I know who you are. I know you are here for me. So I want you to show me if you have anything to reproach to me, if you accuse me of anything, if you are from the police, if you are making an investigation on me, please show me your proof of whatever I have done, and I will show you that I have not done anything. And so please uh, make me a confrontation between the person who accused me of anything, and I will tell everything I have to say, and the problem maybe will be over. And so the lady stood up also, and she was staring at me, and that's the detail that tells me that they were only starting to harass me, and they were not really into the direct talkings. I was not supposed to catch the information, because she was staring at me and she was saying to me, but how did you um, how did you found us? How did you discover us? And I say, well, that is
So she
obvious.
was
You are talking.
surprised. She was
Yeah,
kind of
she
taken
was.
aback.
Yeah, she was confirming that she was not a regular employee. She was a part of a kind of police team, and they were having an operation on me, on my job place. And this is totally illegal in France. We have very severe laws to protect the job place in France. And so before that, before talking with the lady, I have seen my manager separately, and I have told him, sir, I think that these guys and these ladies here in this row, they are not belonging to our team. And who are they? Do you know who are they? And he told me, well, I don't know nothing about them. Me neither. And the only thing I can tell you is that they have come a few weeks before to talk with the big boss of HP, and they have asked him if they could rent this row for a few months, and they have paid by cash immediately. So the big boss of HP could not say no, and he has agreed to give them the rent of the row. And they were outsiders. They are not employees of the company. And that's all what I can tell you. I cannot tell you more. And my advice is that you don't pay attention to them and you forget everything about that. Please. That's all what I got from my manager. It was
But
already enough. But then I started to talk with them and with the lady, and the lady responded. So how did you guess? How did you discover us, undercover us? So how did you do that? Yeah, because I'm clever and you are stupid, and I can listen to what you say, and it's easy for me to reconstruct all the pieces of the puzzle.
yes, so
And
it's absolutely extraordinary, actually, because you have actually uncovered a whole bunch of information that I think would be very interesting to people around the world to hear. That these
yeah,
people suddenly showed up in your workplace, and you kind of got an intimation that they were with the Secret Services, possibly the FBI. Well, I would say really possibly the CIA or the
yeah, no, I
DIA.
think so.
And,
Yeah,
working with your French intelligence agency, whatever it's called, I have to look that
yeah,
up.
yeah,
So you have American intelligence agencies working with the French intelligence agencies, working on brain mapping because they've got a whole map of the brain laid out there for anybody to see, and you actually saw it. And
yeah,
then you catch these people kind of really focused on you, on the minor details, the minutest details of your life on a
yeah,
day-to-day basis, on a minute-to-minute basis. And then you find out from your manager that he's actually rented the workspace to a whole bunch of outsiders for
yeah,
a huge, huge sum handed over in cash, which
yeah,
sounds like major bribery right there, extreme corruption and criminality being
yeah,
practiced by Hewlett Packard because you were working for Hewlett Packard
yeah.
on the
And
Hewlett Packard work floor.
yeah.
Absolutely
So,
shocking.
so it was also interesting to see that my colleagues were involved in the process. So sometimes this group of person, they were going to the coffee machine, and my colleagues were also going to the coffee machine. I could see them talking with each other. So I was very intrigued. Is there a kind of relation between my colleagues and this person?
Mhm.
So one night, after everybody has left, I waited the last minute when nobody was there. And I came to the office of one of my colleagues, and I opened his drawer. And inside, there was a little sticker. And on the sticker, it was written renseignements généraux. And there was a list of name and mobile numbers.
Isn't that the name of the
Renseigne,
French
rens,
intelligence agency?
yeah, renseignements généraux means French intelligence service. So I was very shocked. It was in his drawer. So there was a connection between them and my colleagues have been involved in my harassment. And I could observe my colleague doing the harassment on the behalf of this person who were just sitting there doing nothing.
Mhm.
And my colleagues were training me. So they were coming to me, they were talking to me, they were showing me things on the screen, and I had to do some exercise, etc. And I was visiting each of my colleagues
Mhm.
because each of them has a special competency. So I have to learn from each of them. And I was noticing that sometimes they were pressing something in their hand, in their right hand, and another thing in the left hand. And this has happened many times. And every time it was happening the same thing. There was a bad smell. There was a bad smell, and it was a bad smell happening at a certain moment when I was being told something and I was supposed to have a certain reaction based on what I was being told. And if my reaction was not good, I was having this bad smell around. So I had to do like that. And I could see that they were pressing something at that moment where the bad smell was coming. So I think it was a kind of poppers or something, and they were pressing something and the bad smell
Mhm.
was coming out. And in the other hand, they were pressing something else and they were bringing to their nose. And I could understand what it was because one of them made a comment and he said, luckily we have this one because we can have the perfume in our nose.
I see.
So they were having something to influence me with the smell,
Mm-hmm.
to say something different at the next time they were telling me the same thing. So it was a kind of conditioning with the smell and the
Mm-hmm.
odors.
And
It's
you
a
never,
conditioning.
right, and you noticed them doing this thing with these
Yeah,
smell canisters that they were
yeah,
operating.
yeah, yeah.
And you always smelled the bad smell. Did you ever smell any good smells, or did they keep that for themselves?
No, it was only for them, and the bad smell was for me. And
I see.
they were becoming upset because I was not willing to cooperate and to go in the right direction. So the bad smell was coming a lot, and they were annoyed by that. So at one point, one of them, he told me what he was expecting from me. He told me, uh, Frederic, when I am very mad at something, I really become mad at something, and sometimes it is good to become mad at something and to let your anger come out, your fire from inside go out. So you should do the same. And I don't remember exactly what he said. He said, um, me, I am not ashamed to be a sadist. I am not
Right.
ashamed to be someone very angry sometime. Uh, Actually, I think there was no sense about
Mm-hmm.
what he said. He
Yeah.
was just very upset that I was not going in the right direction, and he could not help himself but telling me what he was expecting from me.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the same time, I was listening to the people on the desk and next to mine, and they were talking about my language, my
Mm-hmm.
words, and they were talking about my semiotics. And I discovered later that the semiotics, it's the brain waves vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know at that time, but they were having equipment to observe my mind remotely,
Mm-hmm.
and they were making analysis
Mm-hmm.
live of
So,
what,
right,
what what was happening, and they
right.
were making my vocabulary.
Right. So basically, just to sort of recapitulate what you were saying, you began to get indicators to the extent that to the effect that basically everything that you did had concomitant brainwaves, and those corresponding brainwaves were being picked up in some way by their methodologies and technologies, and being associated with those specific words and actions that you were demonstrating in real life. And then you have this person coming along and trying to tell you that it's okay to get angry. In other words, encouraging you to have angry reactions or to show anger because perhaps they were intent on capturing those specific brainwaves
Yeah,
for anger. Okay, which plays into
actually,
the whole.
yeah, I didn't know nothing about that, but this is my observation, my raw observation.
Right, right, which was very interesting because now, you and I
Yeah,
have come a long way in terms of researching the scenario and we understand what's going on to a great deal, which many people may not understand, but which I hope to, delineate through more and more of these podcasts, that these projects and experiments are indeed going on. They're connected to, as you say, remote behavior modification or conditioning, whereby brainwaves are being mapped and brain impulses and emotions are being pumped in as well. And we'll talk about all of that later. But to come back to the moment, um, so it's interesting. You were kind of carrying out your own private investigations and kind of beginning to get a handle on what was going on around you, right?
yeah. So at the end of the 2 months, the manager I had in HP, he told me to not come next Monday to the office, and so I was getting fired. It was over, and so at this time, I knew that there was a kind of police operation on me,
Mm-hmm.
and I decided to create my own association. So I created my association to defend my case because I wanted to make a complaint against that. And I have used my association to contact all my colleagues from HP and my manager from HP. So I have sent maybe 15 letters to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was knowing their names. and their city of living, their place of living, and I have found their exact address in the yellow page. So maybe in the yellow page, sometimes the address is wrong or the name is wrong. So maybe amongst the 15%, maybe 2 or 3% were having incorrect address or whatever. I have sent maybe 15 letters to ask them to make a testimony of what has happened, and because they were involved and they have seen exactly what I have seen when I have talked to the lady, and when she responded, they were here. They are witness of what happened here, and nobody replied to my letters. So I decided to start writing a complaint. And this complaint took me 1 year to complete because I wanted to write more details and more details and more details, because many things have continued to happen to me. So it took me 1 year to write. I have sent this to the prosecutor of Grenoble, and maybe 3 months later, I have been required to come to the police station of my place of living, and then the police officer was telling me at the first minute, he was telling me, "Well, sir, it must be very tough for you to leave such things that you have reported in your complaint. So it must be difficult for you, I can see. But please sit. I would like to know a little more about you. So what are your occupation? Who are your friends? What is your schedule of the day, and etc., etc." So he was making an inquiry about me, like if my complaint has been written against me, and if it was me who was creating a threat to the public order. So I saw at this moment that the police was maybe of no help, and neither the prosecutor of Grenoble. So at this moment, I distrust completely the police and the judge and the justice and the prosecutor. So I was feeling completely alone. No one could help me regarding this. I had to go through this only alone by myself. I knew this at this moment. And then I decided after HP to find another job with a specific context. This job was to roam for 1 year in each city all over France, and every week I had to sleep in 2 different hotels because I had a job to install some hardware and to do some training for the employees, how to use the hardware and the software. So it was my job, and we were having a team of 10 persons, and we were going to all over France for 1 year. And I was thinking to myself, this is the perfect job because I will never sleep at the same place. Every night or so, I will be sleeping in a different place. And this is perfect for me because I am targeted at my home. So if I don't sleep at my home, I will be perfectly fine. So it was my idea, and I got the job, and I started the job. And the first times, it was fine. I was sleeping well in the hotels. But after a few weeks, it was over. The pain were coming back to me at the hotel. And I was thinking, how is this possible? They cannot be in every city of France. How they can follow me? And yes, of course, there is an easy way to find me, because the bookings of the hotel are made maybe 2 weeks in advance by the secretary of the company. So if somebody can listen to the conversation over the phone of the company, they can know every bookings of all my hotels for all the year. So from that moment, I have suffered from the same pain at my home, but at the different hotels at everywhere in France, because this person were able to be in my hotel before me. So I decided to use a trick. I was changing my hotel booking at the last minute. I was canceling, and then I was choosing a hotel randomly.
Mm-hmm.
And during a few weeks, it was working well. I was not having the pains. I was free from that. But the problem is that they were following me so easily and so quickly, and they were so numerous, but I was not aware about that there were a lot of them working everywhere
Mm-hmm.
in all the cities.
Mm-hmm.
So actually they managed, even when I was changing my booking, they were managing to find me after just 1 or 2 hours after changing my booking. They were also coming inside the new hotel I had just booked now.
Mm-hmm.
So they were also targeting me in the hotel. So it was a failure. But I have stayed in this company for 6 years. And this is also a proof that I, I am very much able to do a job, even
Absolutely.
while being harassed and targeted and tortured. So
Mm-hmm.
this is something interesting, because the psychiatrists I have seen later on, they were all thinking I am delusional, and they were thinking that maybe it's not compliant with the possibility of having a job. And that was the proof of the contrary, because if I was delusional, how come I could have many jobs during maybe 15 years.
Absolutely.
I had many jobs. So maybe I was a special kind of delusional sick person, or maybe I was not. So, but they could not make the step further in the in the thinking. They could
Yeah.
not think.
Yeah. I think, by the way, psychiatrists are jumping through hoops, trying to rationalize and trying to dismiss these reports of being assaulted with electromagnetic weapons. And the way they're jumping through hoops is coming up with all these stories about conditional delusions and so forth, because it's perfectly clear to them that many of the people reporting are highly educated, are professional, as you are, and are in fact capable of holding down jobs and using their training and their education perfectly, which, by the way, does not comport with the classic idea of schizophrenia, which really means schizos split from reality. It's a split. It's the splitting of the mind from reality, and an inability to comprehend the normal, common reality that we all experience and understand as common.
Yeah,
So there is a huge problem with psychiatry, I think, that needs to be blown wide open. And I'm so glad that we are talking about your case, because it's all, it's helpful in that direction.
yeah.
So in any case,
So
to go back to that, you were traveling, you were doing all your work, you worked at this job for 6 years,
yeah.
and
So
despite all that, you were being stalked, you were being hit with these weapons continuously.
yeah.
Um, what happened after that?
Yes, so after the year of moving everywhere in France, I was coming back to the head office, and I have been there for five more years in the same building. So it's interesting because it's a private building, and the company was having maybe 2 or 3 floors, and on the ground floor there was, I think, the post office was here, and then there were more floor, but it was for other private companies. And I was thinking to myself, okay, is it going to happen again, like in HP? So I was looking around. I was uh, I was very curious, but nothing was there, nothing. So they have not made the mistake twice,
Hmm.
because they knew that I would be able to find out who they are and where they are.
Okay.
It's only maybe at the last year I was feeling some pains, and I was thinking maybe it's coming from the ground floor, and I have paid attention when I was leaving the building from the ground floor. I have paid attention if somebody was coming also outside from the ground floor, and there was someone from the post office. He was coming out in the same time as me, and he was walking behind me. So I was going to the parking lot, and I was just standing there and waiting him to come. And when he saw me in the parking lot, he was a little surprised. So he was searching for his car, and he was having a suitcase. And I was very curious to know what was in the suitcase, but it was not possible to know more. The only thing I knew is that he was not working for the post office. He was someone else. And so I was thinking that maybe they could have entered some office in the post office in the ground floor, but in my company they have not get inside. So maybe they have managed by another way to be in the same building as mine, but not through my own company. So this is the only thing. And so during these 5 years, I think I have shifted again in another apartment, because in the first apartment, after a few months, the person above has gone, and then the pain came back with the new neighbor. And then in the new apartment, it was the same. During a few months, it was okay. And then some person have shifted from the building, and the pain came back. But this time it was more difficult, because it was I think it was the summer or the spring 2002. And I was coming back from a visit to my half brother, and it was the night of the Bastille Day on the 14th of July. And when I came back, I have parked my car a little far, because all the streets were blocked for the pedestrian to see the entertainment with the music and the fireworks we have in the night near the main river, l'Isère, which is crossing Grenoble. So I was walking along the river, and all the people were standing here, the crowd was here, and I was walking to go back to my apartment. And by walking, I was being able to understand that the people following me all the time were already here, and they were expecting me to come this way, and they were already following me, surrounding me, and they were already doing their direct talking about me, etc., etc. And just before leaving the crowd, I heard a last sentence, and this sentence made me think, because the sentence was, oh, maybe it's a little sad, but at least he will live with a good memory if he can see this final fireworks. And I was thinking, what? I am going to live? I'm going to live what? Because I was sure they were talking about me. So I was thinking, oh, maybe it's just one of the joke. Let's not pay attention to that. And I came to my flat, and I started to try to sleep. And by the way, when my psychiatrist in '98 has given me a pill to knock me out for sleeping, my main generalist doctor was also helping me to sleep by giving me a sleeping pill. So the sleeping pill was zolpidem, and he gave me also a pill for relaxation. So it was a kind of opium-based pill, like Valium. So I was using these 2 pills for sleeping, plus the antipsychotic. So I was using 3 pills for making me sleep. So it means that my sleep was very hard to get because of the pains. And when I was unaware of the pains because of the pills, then only I could sleep. So I was taking my pills, I was going to sleep, and then I felt like I was going to die. In my brain was completely melting. My brain was completely splitting into pieces. So I was avoiding, because I was feeling it's coming from a beam. it's coming from a beam. I mean, maybe it's coming from the apartment next to mine. So I was feeling that it was it was directive. I could see that it was going into a direction. So in my bed, I was already having the pills, so it was a little difficult to wake up. But I was feeling that if I could move my head, I could avoid the pain. So I have passed all the night moving my head on my bed all the night, and I have avoided to be killed because I think that's they wanted to do. They wanted my brain to melt or split or whatever,
So
disconnect.
you feel you were getting such an intense beam that you felt that it was targeting your brain to the extent that you might have suffered brain death
Yeah,
had you just sort of
I
stayed
think
stationary.
they wanted to put me into a coma or something, and that's the explanation comes from the last sentence of the lady I met from their group in the crowd, and she was saying that I will live with a good memory with the beautiful fireworks. And the word live doesn't mean
Right,
to leave a place, but it means to live the life. So
right.
she was talking about my planned death. They were planning my death on the night of the 14th of July 2002 in my flat, from the flat next to me who was having a fake neighbor with a
Mhm.
gun.
So
So
this was an
it's the first time.
assassination attempt with an
Yeah,
electromagnetic beam directed at your brain.
yeah, and it was the first time, and it was not the last.
This is such a
So
dramatic story.
in the morning, I knew that I had to move away. So I have phoned to travel agents, and I told them where, what is the farthest place I can go without a passport. And they told me, well, you are French, you don't have a passport. Maybe you should consider to go to Turkey because you can go without a passport. So I say, okay, book me a ticket. I want to go to Turkey this afternoon. And I have made my luggage. I was having my tent, my sleeping bag, my pillow, etc. And I just picked up a few things, and I was thinking, I have to escape from here. I have to maybe start a new life out of France, because I was not aware this problem was worldwide. I was not aware that this problem was happening to many other thousand other people. I was thinking from the beginning that it was only me, and I was receiving a kind of revenge of a police officer or a military person. I was thinking maybe I did something that I don't know about, and this has upset someone in this position, and he was having enough power to use his position to do whatever he wants with me, and he just want to get a revenge about me because I did something that he did not like, and I was thinking it was uh, um, just a simple revenge from a person to one person. I was thinking it's a question of one person to one person. I did not know that there were a group of thousands and thousands of stalkers, and I did not know that they were having thousands and thousands of other victims and in over the world. So I took my ticket. I went to Turkey, and I took the bus, and I went to a lake, and there was a camping. So I decided to sleep there. And the first night was okay. And there were not so many other tents. There were just maybe 3 or 4 tents plus mine. And then on the next day, I could see popping new tents, many of them. So where these tents were coming from? So I don't know, but it was maybe more than 2 days that I was in Turkey. So I think they have managed to ask the local troops in Turkey to be involved in my harassment.
That
And
appears to
I
be
could,
what's going on worldwide. They're just working out arrangements with the local intelligence agencies who are setting up
yeah,
their own informant networks on the ground, and this is happening worldwide.
yeah,
Yes.
and
Which part of Turkey, by the way, were you in?
yeah, I was in Istanbul and
Mhm.
some places around. Yeah. So on the second night, it was again the pains were coming back, and maybe they were shooting at me from the tents or from the cars or whatever. There were many possibilities around me.
Mhm.
So on the third night, I decided, okay, this is maybe 4 or 5 days I am away from France,
Mhm.
and this problem is coming back to me in the middle of Turkey, in the middle of nowhere. After 5 days out of France, this problem is again happening to me, and it's very painful. So I decided to not sleep a third night in the camping, but I have left all my stuff in the camping. And just opposite of the camping, there was a hotel. So I went to the hotel and asked for a room. And I took a room. And in the room, I have settled there. And I have searched in my bag. And I was having a lot of pills because I knew that I was in the need of using some pills for sleeping or anything. So I have swallowed all the pills I was having, like aspirin and sleeping pills and relaxing pills, Valium, etc. So I have swallowed all the pills that I could take, and I have managed to take enough of aspirin, because aspirin I knew from my lectures that if you have enough aspirin in your blood, it's making your blood very liquid, very fluid. And then I have used a kitchen knife that was there in the bedroom, and I have cut myself here and here. And then I took a
Frederic, I've kind of lost you.
shower
Your video
and
has
my
stopped. Okay, I missed a few
okay,
minutes of that because everything kind of froze. So
okay,
you told me you had taken aspirin, right?
yeah,
So basically,
yeah,
are you
because
saying that you were in a state of real torment about this assault? That you were contemplating making an attempt on your
no,
life? Is that what you were saying?
no, my mind was perfectly fine. So
Yeah.
I was not feeling in a special state, and my mood was perfectly okay. So actually, I was trying to kill myself. I have committed suicide here in this room.
Yeah, but
But it was not an effect of depression. It was not an effect of being sad or lonely or desperate. It was only a reasonable decision based on what I have endured during so many years, that if the pain can follow me wherever I go, and it's happening 24 hours 7, the
right.
pain is impossible to stop it.
Hmm.
And the only way to stop it is to stop my life. So
Hmm.
it was a logical conclusion. It was
Right.
not
It
a,
was a
a
considered
desperate.
decision, is what you were saying, because you had tried your best to get help from many sources and had failed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But the interesting thing is that I collapsed in the shower, and the shower was open. But I woke up in my bed. I woke up in my bed, and the shower was closed. So
Mhm.
it means that some people have entered into my bedroom, and
Correct.
they have taken me out of the shower, and even my scar, my wounds, it has been covered. So my blood was no more flowing out of my body.
Really? So did you wake up with
Yeah.
bandages or something on your arm?
So I think it is these people, the stalkers, they have come in my bedroom and they have saved my life. And at that moment, I understood that my life um, was not the point. They were not after my life. They were after some result about an experiment being done to me. And they wanted the result before I die. So if they were not having the result, they didn't want me to die. So they have saved my life after my suicide
That's
attempt in this hotel.
that's a very important point to make, that it appears that you were at least being given indications that your
Yeah,
life was actually important to them, your continuation, your continued existence was important to them because you represented an opportunity for continuing experimentation.
yeah. And maybe later I discovered that they can make money out of that. But at that moment, I was not aware of that. So I came back from Turkey. And when I took the plane, I reached in Paris. And they were already here in the crowd waiting for me coming out with my luggage. And one of them, he could not help but making a comment just in front of me. And he was telling, "Oh, you made us so scared about what you did in Turkey." He was not talking to me, he was talking to somebody else, but I
Yeah.
knew it was related to what happened in Turkey. So they could not help but do that. So I came back,
Mhm.
and um, I decided to shift to another place for living. And I found this time a small house that was not a building, it was a small house. And there was a ground floor and the first floor. On the first floor, there was the lady, the landlord. She was living on the first floor, and on the ground floor, there were two flats. So the house was cut in two. One flat was empty and for rent, and the other flat was belonging to the son of the landlord lady. So I was thinking, this is perfect. This is not a building. There is no neighbors around. And the only neighbors, it's the landlord lady and her son. So I was expecting to be perfectly safe here. But you cannot never expect that. So it has happened the following. When I settled there, it was very good. I could enjoy the life because it was in the mountains, and I could enjoy the life in the mountains. And I was thinking, okay, maybe now at least I can have some relief. And then after 1 week or 2 weeks, the son came to me and my neighbor, and he told me, "Oh, you know what? It's been 5 years that I was searching for a bigger apartment for me to live with my wife and etc. And I could not find this apartment, but now it has come. I found it. It's near Chambéry. It's in Aix-les-Bains. It will be a beautiful apartment. Finally, I found it." And I was thinking to myself, well, that is a surprising event. Something is happening just 2 weeks after I come, and he was expecting for that since 5 years, and just now it has come. Well, okay. So he has shifted to a new place, and the apartment next to mine was for rent also. And I did not expect that from the beginning. I was thinking to be the only one to have a flat to rent. And now the other flat was for renting. And it did not take too long. The newcomers have come, and they were fake students, a group of 5 students. And they were pretending to have a kind of, a kind of job with the city hall. And it was the off season. So what kind of job 5 students could have to do all together in the same time in the city halls of a small mountain village during the off season? So this was having no sense. So I went to meet them in their apartment, and I could see it was having no sense because the 5 person, they were sleeping anywhere with sleeping bags, etc. So there was absolutely no sense in that. And the pains were coming back after their coming. And it was not only them. because I have seen every night, after a few weeks later, apparently the students were not enough to target me, because they were just standing aside of me. They were not above me. And what they like is to be above me and above my head. They want to target me from above my head. So they have managed to convince the landlord lady to move away from her own home every night. She was taking a taxi, and the taxi was driving her up of the mountain. And I could find later on where she was going. She was going to a very big hotel on the top of the mountain, and this hotel was closed because it was the off season. But do you guess who was there in the hotel? It was the military. There were many trucks of military here, and they were using the hotel as a base. As a base for what? So I was thinking maybe they want to do some military exercise. So I was driving with my car, and I was trying to see what kind of exercise they are doing here. And I have seen the military, they were here, but they were not having these guns they have all the time. They were not having any weapons. And I have seen a truck. The truck was open, and it was written on the truck, military logistic. And inside the trucks, it was full of clothes and food, and for using in the bedrooms of the hotel. So I was thinking, this is not regular military training. I think these militaries are using these clothes to pretend to be regular inhabitants of the village. But I discovered this later on, because on the same time I was seeing this lady every night. The taxi was taking her to this hotel, and she was coming back in the morning. So what was happening in this house during the night? Well, a car was coming just after she left, and a few people with luggage and bags, they were coming up in the first floor. And I could hear them talking between them. And it was the same spectacle as the first time I was in my family house with the fake lady neighbor next to us, because she was receiving people, and they were talking, and they were laughing, and they were being angry sometimes. And it was exactly the same. The only thing is that on the first floor, nobody was here. And there were this group of 3 or 4 person, men and women. They were coming with bags. And then at these moments, I was having very, very heavy pain inside my brain. And I could see that if I was still, the pain was becoming very intense. And if I was moving around, the pain was a little shifting. And I could see exactly the same reaction and the same comments. When I was feeling a heavy pain, they were laughing. And the reaction was instantaneous. I could see immediately their reaction through the ceiling. I could hear the voices. And when I was successful at resisting for 1 hour, I was able to resist the pain. They were becoming upset and angry, and again they were shouting and they were banging on the table. So exactly the same. So I could understand that this person were targeting me from the first floor, and they had made an agreement with the landlord lady to take her by the taxi in the military hotel. And these militaries, I could see them during the daytime. They were in the village, and they were making street theater. And I can tell you that it was looking like, this TV serials in the 60s, where I don't remember the English name, but in France we call this the prisoner. So it's the story of a person who wants to resign from the Secret Service, but the Secret Service don't want him to resign because he knows too much. So they isolate him in a small island, and he lives inside the island, and every time he tries to escape, there is a big white bubble coming out of the water and trying to catch him, so he cannot escape from the island. And in the island, he lives with other peoples, and the other peoples, they are just actors. They are fake inhabitants. They are actors just to
That
entertain
sounds like
him.
a
And
fascinating show. We have to track that down and try to find out what show
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. I don't remember the name in English, but in French it's called The Prisoner. And it was exactly the same feeling. I was walking in the street of the village. I was going in the shops, in the bakery, in the meat shop, I was going in the supermarket, etc. And I could see these actors around me. They were making a show, a freak show around me. And it was having no sense at all, because all the houses, they were having their window and the door, everything was shut down. There was nothing, because it was the off season. Nobody was there. So in my mind, I was thinking I should make a comparison with the other village. So, because if I stay only in this village, if I don't make a comparison, I cannot understand relatively how I can understand my observation, because I'm a scientist. So I need to find a point
Sure.
from where I can make the observation and the comparison. So I have been to 2 or 3 villages around, and nobody was there, not even a cat. And all the doors and the windows, everything was shut down. So it was almost the same in my village, except that in the street, there was a crowd of fake pedestrians and fake cars and fake inhabitants and fake couples and fake children, because they are involving the children in their street theaters and in their process. In their process, it's men, women, children, teenagers, elders, unemployed. You have any kind of person doing this job.
It sounds like that movie, The Truman Show, where everything is fake.
Yeah. It's also making me think about that. Yeah.
Right.
Really.
And actually, when you say that these fake people all around you, are you saying that these are people who don't belong to that village who suddenly seem to pop up out of nowhere?
Yeah, I can understand that they don't belong to the village, because they are always around me. Whenever I go out, they are here. And if I move, they are also moving. And then if I'm coming back, they are coming back. And it's not always the same person. So could it be possible that it's some kind of tourist? But no, it's the off season. So no, there is no sense at all in all these stories.
Yeah, so it's a
So
very odd kind of populating of this wonderful French mountain village right in the middle
yeah.
of the off season, but nobody should have been crowding the area.
Yeah, because it was in the summer, and it was in altitude. So if there is not snow, nobody will come to ski. So the shop will be closed. Because it was mainly it was apartments for rent for the people who get in there for the holidays. So the holidays were not here, so nobody was there, and the people here, they were just walking, going inside a shop, going outside, taking a car, going away, coming back, and they were not entering in their home, because it was not their home. And I think they were belonging to this group of military who were using fake dresses, etc. So at this moment, I knew that they were going to kill me a second time in this house. So I had to escape again,
Did you
and this
get
time,
further indications that there was going to be a second assassination attempt on your life?
um, well, I think the pains were so hard to avoid when they were hitting me from the first floor. I was thinking maybe it's my last days are just about to come.
Right.
So
Okay.
I felt it was urgent for me to go very far from here. And then I decided to follow the advice from my half brother, who gave
Mhm.
me this advice in 2002 when
Mhm.
I visited him after the first attempt of killing me in my previous apartment. And he gave me the advice to go in a place where I could be easily lost, where there is a billion of people. And he was not sure if my stories were true or not, but he was someone intelligent, and he was knowing that the French police and the French Secret Service, they are very capable of doing this kind of things. And when I was telling him all the truths about what was happening to me, because I was trusting him a lot, because he was a very intelligent person. He was a professor of philosophy, and he was a specialist of the religions of the world, etc. So I told him everything in 2002, and he told me, well, I don't know if everything you say is true, but if it is true, and it is very possible, then I think that your life in France is totally screwed up and totally ruined. If this is really happening to you, this is going to follow you and to kill you. So you have to escape from here. And my advice is to go to a place where there is a billion of people and you get lost here. So go to India. And that's what I did.
Okay, wonderful. And I know that we're going to talk about your entire trip to India in our next podcast. So maybe
Okay.
this will be a good time to bring this session to an end. I have to say, this has been such a dramatic and extraordinary narrative in this particular podcast, Frederic. I thank you intensely for taking the time and, the emotional energy to sit down and remember and narrate these events for us because they're so important for the world to hear. And you've done such an excellent job actually pointing out the distinction between the events that occurred to you and then your understanding and investigations succeeding those initial events, which kind of create the understanding for the rest of us listening that indeed something extraordinary is going on, that there are networks involved in organized stalking, that there are networks involved in using directed energy weapons on selected targets. And in this particular case, unfortunately, you happen to be the target of interest to these people. And you've done such a great job actually sleuthing, being a top detective both in your workplace and later on in your travels in France, and then finally in this village. And you've
Yeah.
painted such an extraordinary picture for us. So this is absolutely tremendous. And I hope that we can, continue this conversation and talk about next your trip to India in the next podcast. Is there anything in particular about these experiences in France that you'd like to, during this time period, that you would like to address at this point before we close?
No, the only thing is that um, I have seen a psychanalyst. After seeing a psychiatrist, I have seen a psychanalyst, and it was
Mhm.
maybe from the year 2000 to 2002. And
Okay.
he was totally against any kind of drugs, any kind of medication, and he was the best person I have met because I was having very interesting chat with him.
Mhm.
Um, and one day I told him, oh,
I'm still
something
here.
else. Yeah, yeah, it's okay. It's my device. It's being too hot. It has shut down.
Oh dear.
Okay. So you can still hear me and see me?
I can still hear you and see you. Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So at one point of time, I was asking him, what would you do if the police I am talking you about would come to you and would ask you to cooperate for them against me? And he told me, don't worry about that. If they come to me to ask me to cooperate for them against you, I will throw them out of my office with my feet. And he was a very nice person. And I was having also still my generalist doctor.
Mm.
And it seems that this secret service have been trying several times to involve my doctors, because my generalist doctor, he has been in touch with the police, but he never told me. He only revealed me this when I came back from India. And at this time, he told me, "Oh, Mr. Frederic Laroche, it's a long time I have not seen you. So you have been in India for so many years. But tell me one thing: is this over? This problem that you had with the police?" And I say, "Well, I don't know." And he say, "Yes, yes, you know, because this person from the police, they have come to me and they have asked me to cooperate with them against you, and I refuse." And he was telling me this uh, 4 or 5 years after it has happened. So I think this psychanalyst who told me this, I would throw them out of my office with my feet. I think it was not something he has just invented. I think he has just repeated exactly what he said to the police, because I am almost sure they have tried to come close to every of my doctors, and this one has said no, and even the other one. So at least there were two, at
Yeah.
least minimum two of them, they have refused to cooperate with the secret services.
That's brilliant to know that there are ethical doctors and psychoanalysts around who actually would say no to the
Yeah,
military services and the secret
but
services,
it
the
was not
intelligence services.
the case of another one I have seen just before.
Mhm.
And it was easy to spot, because the game was that during the conversation, I was asking him to give me my prescription, etc., and he was receiving a call, and
Mhm.
he was keeping the phone like that, and he was continuing to talk on the phone, and I could easily understand what was going on, because he was talking to the secret service through the phone, and the secret service were talking to him by the phone, and I could hear both of the voices,
Oh my.
and they were talking about me, and they were expecting me to react from that. So it is the way for me that I have used to detect that one of my doctor is being used against me. And
Mhm.
if I start reacting, then they feel that they have succeeded something. So they just hang on the phone and they continue on. So one of my doctor, I have surprised him. I have caught him just doing that in front of me, and I knew that this doctor, I should never see him again in my
Very
life.
interesting. So you actually caught him right in the middle of conversing with these intelligence services.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, yes, unfortunately, one of the situations that we are discovering as we consider many different cases like this worldwide is the complicity of the medical profession. So many doctors are behaving in an incredibly unethical fashion. They are not preserving any kind of confidentiality between the patient and themselves, and they are happily allowing themselves to be literally swayed by these intelligence services and giving over medical records and so forth, and participating, which is absolutely unethical. And all of this needs to be exposed, absolutely. And I'm glad we're in the business of doing that. So at this point, I guess we can bring this podcast to an end and look forward to the next one, where we will go more deeply into your entire experience in India, which, as you know, is the place where I was born and raised. So that will be a very interesting conversation. And we'll pick up from there. I just wanted to tell you, Frederic, if you wanted to stay on right now after I click off the broadcast, we can have a
yes,
chat for a couple seconds just to
yeah.
figure out when we can meet again. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
So thank you very much
Okay.
once again, and we'll see you all next time.